This is Evangelist Henry Walker. Thank you for tuning into this podcast. Or maybe listen to me on my website at henrywalker.org under audio messages. Or maybe listen to me on my YouTube channel. We want to start a new message today about not tolerating the spirit of Jezebel. Let's go to Father in prayer. First, Father, I thank you for another opportunity to minister to your people. I ask you to use me just the way you want, Father. Let me say only what you want me to say. Nothing more, nothing less. And help people, Father, open up their hearts and receive your word, study your word, and act on your word. In the mighty name of Yahshua, by the blood of Yahshua. Satan, I rebuke you from this podcast, every succeeding podcast, everybody listening out there. Go and don't return in the name of Yahshua, by the blood of Yahshua. So again, we want to talk about not tolerating the spirit of Jezebel. Some of you may or may not know about Jezebel, but she married Ahab, who served Baal, and she served the goddess Ashtoreth. And here are some of her characteristics: insecurity, rejection, pride, arrogance, manipulation, and control. That defines that spirit. And really, it's a principality. We'll get to that later on. Some more characteristics. Here's number one. Ahab and Jezebel lived in Jezreel, which means a place of revelation. This spirit, this principality wants to prevent you from receiving the revelations that the Father wants you to have. This broadcast is set up to help you to study the Word, line upon line, precept upon precept, and see the truth in the Word. And the Spirit doesn't like true prophets. Again, Jezreel means a place of revelation. And they both conspired to take Naboth's field in Jezreel. Ahab asked Naboth, "Can I buy your field?" He said, "No, it's in the family. I don't want to give it up." So Jezebel had a plan. She took Ahab's ring and made a decree. And she got some people who would lie for her and arrested Naboth and said that he blasphemed the king and had him killed. So Ahab had that field. That's exactly what happened. And she's a master, the spirit is a master manipulator. This spirit can operate through a man or a woman. The spirit is a master manipulator, and she attacks spiritual authority. She wants to get close to spiritual authority and flatter them and seduce them. And again, she's not a demon, but a principality that releases a spirit of controlling manipulation as she sends messages of fear to people. Number two, she's like a shark that's looking for blood. She looks for controllable disciples who are rebellious, weak, or wounded. I'll say it again. She looks for controllable disciples who are rebellious, weak, or wounded. She draws her strength from controlling disciples. Jezebel had 850 false prophets around her table. 450 prophets of Baal and 400 just hers. 850 false prophets around her table. Number three, she wants to pull people away from anybody who can help the potential victim. She wants to isolate that person. If you have a true prophet in your life, stick close to that person. Number four, she probes souls looking for weaknesses. If she asks how you're doing, she's only looking to probe, to get something that she's fishing for information that she can use. She'll probe looking for emotional hurts. Some potential doors eventually could be emotional hurts or wounds. She's trying to get at your spirit through your soul, which is your mind, will, and emotions. And she tries to paint a negative picture of you, of your natural circumstances, and trying to get you to concentrate on the natural circumstances and not on the Father's Word. And she wants to magnify these natural circumstances that you're going through, make it bigger than the Word in your mind. She does this to separate your faith in the Father and His words by these messengers of fear. She attaches herself to leadership, number five. She attaches herself to leadership. She can rule in the political realm, in a ministry that you're in, and just person to person. She can just go from person to person and try to have you as her disciple. And number six, she creates soul ties to have that person dependent upon her. She can use personal prophecies that sound like they're coming from Yahweh at first, but usually her prophecies are filled with fear and control. She doesn't want you to look to anybody from a word, only to her. And she prophesies that the person who she's trying to control needs her in order to survive. We'll show you how to conquer that spirit. She also tries to lift people to pride with her prophecies, lift them up. And pride, that brought Satan down and 1/3 of the angels. And she wants to live with these prophecies in private, away from any spiritual authority. She wants to pull people down, lower than her level. Number seven, this spirit used sorcery, which is the release of witchcraft by words. Again, she wants to use sorcery, which is the release of witchcraft by words. And she has messengers. She sends messages that usually have a guard with that messenger. She wants to send the messages by two, the messenger and the guard. And we'll talk about this later on. This is what happened to Elijah after he had such a great victory at Mount Carmel, where he brought fire down from heaven in front of all Israel and the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets around her table. Jezebel sent messengers to Elijah to put fear in him, and he ran for his life. This is how powerful this spirit, this principality is. This principality wants people under her to be her servants, wants to rule over people. And Elijah was afraid because he already killed many of Yahweh's prophets. And number 8, this spirit hates when she can't get her way and you say no to her influence. She may even shed some crocodile tears to get you to maintain her control, or even flattery. Number 9, she likes to transfer discouragement, fear, strife, etc. by her messengers. She wants to have these spirits jump on you. She likes to transfer these spirits by hugging. Be careful who you let lay hands on you. You're better off just going in your prayer closet and laying hands on yourself. You know where your hands have been. I ministered so much in the Bahamas, still do. So many ladies that got blessed. Some other woman come up and hug and try to get that blessing away from her. Even though you cover yourself with the blood of Yahshua, you need to be careful who you hug, especially if you have open doors in your life. You have to surrender everything to the Father. Turn your flesh over to the Father so He can mortify the deeds of your flesh, as Romans 8, verse 13, make you more like Yahshua, verse 29, and bring the fruit of the Spirit out of your life. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. That's in Galatians 5, verse 22 to 26. But let's go to 1 Kings 18 and see the Spirit in action. 1 Kings 18. And this message is on my website. It'll be the top message. Don't tolerate the spirit of Jezebel. A written message on the top of my message page at henrywalker.org. www.henrywalker.org. Get it around to other people who are being controlled by the Spirit. 1 Kings chapter 18. This is where Elijah came against 850 false prophets, and all Israel is watching this. In verse 22, 1 Kings 18. Then said Elijah unto the people, even I only remain a prophet of Yahweh, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bullocks, and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under, and I'll dress the other bullock, and lay it on wood, and put no fire. And I'm going to call upon my Yahweh to burn the sacrifice. Let them call on their Satan to burn up the sacrifice. In verse 25, and Elijah said unto the prophets of Baal, choose you 1 bullock for yourselves, and dress it first, for you are many. And call on Satan, and put no fire under. They took the bullock, which was given them in verse 26, and he dressed it, and called on the name of Baal, say, O Baal, help us. But there was no voice, nor any that answered. And they leaped upon the altar which was made. And Elijah mocked them in verse 27. Cry aloud. He must be talking, or pursuing, or he's on vacation, or he's sleeping. In verse 28, and they cried aloud and cut themselves after the manner with knives and lancet until the blood gushed out upon them. And it came to pass when midday was past, that's noon, and he prophesied even the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, which is 3 p.m. There was neither voice nor any answer to any that regarded. So Baal couldn't bring down any fire. And so from noon to 3 p.m. is a great time. It's in my book, Noon, on the bottom of my message page, which is free. Noon to 3 p.m. is a great time to make appointments with a dentist or whatever, because the devil is especially bound. Because in Revelation, the false prophet brings down fire from the sky, and here Baal was bound up, especially between noon and 3 p.m. Write that down. Try to make appointments during the day between noon and 3 p.m. Satan is especially bound. In verse 32, and with the stones, Elijah built an altar in the name of Yahweh, and he made a trench about the altar as great as would contain 2 measures of seed. And he put the wood on there, and he filled 4 barrels of water and poured it on the burnt sacrifice. In verse 36, it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, which was 3 p.m., which is the same time that Yahshua died, 3 p.m. Elisha, the prophet, came near and said, Yahweh, Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that thou art Elohim in Israel, and that I am your servant, and I have done all these things at your word. In verse 38, then the fire of Yahweh fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and licked up the water that was around the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces. And they said, Yahweh, he is Elohim. Yahweh, he is Elohim. And Elisha said unto them, take the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. And they took them, and Elisha brought them down to the brook Kisha and slew them there. Yahweh really used them, but here's where we go right now. Of course, Jezebel heard about this and was really upset, and she sent her messengers. Remember, she likes to send one messenger with a God. In chapter 19, verse 1, and Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. And Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, so that the Baal do to me, and more also, if I make not your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. So here she sent a messenger and a God to threaten Elijah. See, Elijah knew that she had some other prophets that Yahweh killed, so he was afraid. In verse 3, and when he saw that, he arose and went for his life. It's one of the effects of that spirit is fear, which belonged to Judah and left his servant there. See, fear is a spirit that only has power over you if you tolerate. Yahweh hasn't given us the spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. If you get attacked in your mind, say out loud, Yahweh hasn't given me the spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. So he ran for his life. Fear came. That's one of the characteristics of the spirit, is fear came on him. It just jumped on him. So don't be anxious and afraid of approaching a person with the spirit operating in their lives. It's always better to go to a person in authority to deal with this person who's being influenced by Jezebel. If you're in authority, the spirit of Jezebel wants to be a friend to you. It gets you through others. See, Jezebel was rejected by her father and controlled by her mother. Her main purpose is to control. And so that's one of her weapons is fear. And Elijah fell right into it. Number 2 is it wants to isolate that person. And look what happened. He left his servant there. He just was by himself. He wanted to be isolated by himself. In verse 4, but he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a juniper tree, and he requested for himself that he might die, and said, it is enough now, Yahweh, take away my life, for I'm not better than my fathers. And number 3, he was exhausted. Exhaustion is another one of those effects of that spirit. He was exhausted. He sat under a juniper tree and slept. In verse 5, and as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, then an angel touched him and said unto him, arise and eat. And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baking on the coals, and a cruse of water at his head. And he did eat and drink, and laid him down again. He was so tired, so exhausted, even though he ate, he had to sleep again. Again, that's one of the characteristics that the spirit of Jezebel is operating in somebody's life. Again, with fear, isolation, and exhaustion. All Elijah wanted to do is be by himself, hide out, Here's a man who just stood against the 850 false prophets. He ran in fear and wanted to be alone, and he was exhausted. Also, depression is another characteristic of what the spirit could be doing in somebody's life. He's depressed. He wanted, in verse 4, to die. And Jezebel likes to bring thoughts of suicide to people. And number 5, he thought of quitting. He just wanted to quit. In Philippians 3, verse 13 and 14, Philippians 3, verse 13 and 14, Paul said, brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but one thing, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before, I press towards the mark for the prize of the high calling of the Father in Yahshua. So again, Elijah wanted to quit. Number 6, the spirit gives sexual, impure thoughts. Well, turn me to Revelation chapter 2, verse 20. Keep your hand in 1 Kings. Revelation chapter 2, verse 20. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against you, because you suffer that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess, to teach and seduce my servants to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. And I gave her space to repent of her fornication, and she repented not. And I'll cast her into a bed, and them that commit adultery with her into great tribulation, except they repent of the deed. So she wants to send sexual impure thoughts. Back to 1 Kings. These are some effects of what happens with that spirit. We'll get to more later on how to combat that spirit. You just got to repent of that spirit of Jezebel and don't tolerate it again. And there's more weapons we'll talk about in a little while. Just to let you know, Ahab was a Baal worshiper. The other titles of Baal include Lord of the City, Lord of the Earth. And Jezebel worshipped Moloch, which is connected with abortion. They used to sacrifice to Moloch and putting their kids into the fire to worship Moloch. Jezebel's father was Ethbaal, Ethbaal, Ethbaal. Besides being a Baal worshiper, her father was a high priest of Ashtaroth, who was connected to good fortune. Remember, Astor, that's where they get Easter from. The goddess Astor came down supposedly in an egg. And when it had sacrificed to her, they would kill children and put the kids' blood on egg to worship her. So many people are into Easter egg hunts and so forth. Another name for Ashtaroth is Aphrodite, or the goddess of sex. I'll read that again. Other name for Ashtaroth is Aphrodite, or the goddess of sex. Other titles that she has are Queen of Heaven and the Bride of Heaven. Ashtaroth was said to be married to Dagon, who has the title of the Mother Earth. That's where they get the term Mother Nature. See, as you can see, Jezebel has a group of spirits connected to her. And Ahab, it really takes an Ahab spirit for Jezebel to do her thing. But Ahab is a provoker. He provoked Yahweh more than any other king. You can write this down, 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 33. 1 Kings 16, verse 33. He provoked Yahweh more than any king in Israel. You find the spirit around people who just want to nitpick. They're always contentious. They just want to argue about every little detail. He always brings a storm into the room. See, Ahab is not weak. Ahab was a king and a warrior. He had the same destructive desires as Jezebel, but he used Jezebel and her seduction ability to get that field from Naboth. He has a coveting spirit. And he did this by allowing Jezebel to take Naboth's field and have these false witnesses, these liars, to have him killed. And those affected by the spirit of Ahab have deep bouts of depression, trouble with sexual fantasies, perverse imaginations, and pornography. If you tell a person with this spirit to repent, he'll either run away or attack you behind your back. That's what these spirits represent. But here's how you can conquer that spirit. We'll talk about Jehu in just a little while. Jehu, he eventually had Jezebel killed, means Yahweh is. Jehu means Yahweh is. His father Jehoshaphat means Yahweh judges. Jehu means Yahweh is. His father Jehoshaphat means Yahweh judges. His grandfather Nimsky means one who sets free. One who sets free. So when you come against Jezebel with Yahweh at your side, he's the one who judges and sets free. Jehu was an apostle of war coming against a goddess of war. So to defeat Jezebel and Ahab, number one, you must have a spiritual fortitude. You must be brave. And when you surrender everything to the Father, turn your flesh over to him so he can mortify the deeds of your flesh, you belong to him. And you will have that spiritual fortitude. Don't hold anything back from the Father. You don't want to come against the enemy without surrendering everything to the Father. You want complete protection from your Father. And he'll give you that spiritual fortitude, that bravery, the courage. Like he told Joshua, be of good courage. Number two, when Yahweh said go, Jehu went right away. He didn't look for another confirmation. He just went right away. And you see that in so many people in the Word. You know, like Abraham left where he was right away to go to a new land. Noah built an ark when Yahweh said to build an ark. They didn't look for confirmations. These people didn't have the Spirit of the Father inside of them, but they did exactly what the Father said right away. And number three, Jehu knew how to deal with Jezebel's messengers. He never considered their discouraging messages. He just ignored them. And number four, he didn't let anything or anybody get in his way what he had to do for Yahweh. Number five, he was really anointed. It takes a really anointed person to resist a ruling principality like Jezebel over a city. Number six, he carried a conquering, militant determination and fierceness anointing into battle against Jezebel and all connected with her. The biggest area where Jezebel likes to work is right in the middle of churches. Where there's a Jezebel spirit in the pulpit, The Jezebel spirit needs an Ahab, the congregation, with an Ahab spirit around them, to accept everything he or she says. Remember, Jezebel had no authority by herself. She needed to be married to the king to have any authority. And Jezebel in a pulpit cannot exist unless the congregation of Ahabs let her do it. That's what we talked about in Revelation chapter 2. Suffering the spirit of Jezebel. This Ahab spirit in congregations love to allow Jezebel from the pulpit to do whatever she wants. So many saints love to be controlled by somebody else. They don't want to search out the Word. Whatever I'm teaching on these podcasts, search it out in the Word. It's not just one line, it's line upon line, precept upon precept. Whatever's coming from the pulpit, you better make sure it's in the Word. And if that person up there is preaching, he or she, and they're talking about these pagan holidays, which you talk about, and you can check out the origin of these pagan holidays, go into my website, henrywalker.org, go to the internet, and not talking about the feast days, which Yahshua kept. He has fulfilled every feast day except the last three. Feast of Trumpets, which is Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, and Tabernacles. If we're walking in Yeshua's footsteps, we got to keep those feast days. Remember, it talks about in Zechariah, the last chapter, in the millennium, the 1,000-year period of time, that anybody who doesn't come to Jerusalem to worship the King and keep the Feast of Tabernacles will have no rain. So the Feast of Tabernacles is never done away with. We talked about on previous podcasts about the Sabbath not being done away with. How in Isaiah 66, it says, from one Sabbath to another Sabbath, people in a millennium, the 1,000-year period of time, with Yeshua in Jerusalem, people will come to worship the King. So this you have to search out for yourself. And if people are preaching against that and replacing the Sabbath with Sunday, man, that spirit of Jezebel could be there. The spirit of Antichrist is there because the Father is not there because he only backs up his word with signs and wonders. It doesn't matter how large they are. The only way they got large is because they compromised somewhere against the word. Again, so many saints want to be controlled by somebody else so they don't have to make any decisions. And religion is a great controller. And some churches can't wait to get somebody to be a member so they can begin their control. They say things like, all members are required to do such and such. Membership may be okay, but not to be used for control and manipulation, to control and manipulate money from people. But let's go to 2 Kings chapter 9. 2 Kings chapter 9. So Elijah sent one of his prophets to anoint Jehu to be king. Verse 6, 2 Kings chapter 9, verse 6. And he arose and went into the house, and he poured the oil on his head, and said unto him, Thus said Yahweh, I have anointed you king over the people of Yahweh, even over Israel. And thou shalt smite the house of Ahab, your master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants the prophets, and above all the servants of Yahweh at the hand of Jezebel. For the whole house of Ahab shall perish, and I'll cut off from Ahab him that pisses against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel. And I'll make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Abihud. And a dog shall eat Jezebel in the portion of Jezreel, and there shall be none to bury her. And he opened the door and fled. Jehu had his marching orders. See, he didn't worship Yahweh, Jehu, but Yahweh used them. He could use anybody. He'll use anybody that's obedient to him. And again, look at, if you read Hebrews 11, look at these people who responded to what the Father said and just did what he said right away. So Jehu, he got his marching orders, and he went with his warring anointing, and he killed Jehoram, who was against Yahweh. He killed Ahaziah, Ahazih, who's against Yahweh. In verse 30, and when Jehu was come to Jezreel, Jezebel heard of it, and she painted her face and tied her head and looked out the window. And as Jehu entered in at the gate, she said, Has Zimri peace which slew his master? Zimri had committed suicide. Now that spirit is trying to get Jehu to commit suicide. Just like with Elijah. In verse 32, and he lifted up his face to the window and said, Who is on her side? And there looked out to him 2 or 3 eunuchs. And he said, Throw her down. And so they threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall and on the horses, and he throwed her underfoot. When he was come in, he did eat and drink, and said, Go, see now this cursed woman, and bury her, for she's the king's daughter. And he went to bury her, but they found no more of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hands. Wherefore they came again, told him, and he said, This is the word of Yahweh which he spoke by his servant Elijah the Tishbite, saying, In a portion of Jezreel shall the dogs eat the flesh of Jezebel. And the carcass of Jezebel shall be as dung upon the face of the field in a portion of Jezreel, so that they could not say, This is Jezebel. So it's very interesting that all was left was her skull, her feet, and the palms of her hands. Because remember, in her mind, to have Naboth killed, she thought about it, and she took the king's seal in her hand, and she ran to where they had Naboth and had this false messengers lie about him. So that's all was left was her skull, because she had this in her mind, her plan to take the field of Naboth, and her feet, she hastened to be there at his trial and had him killed, and the palms of her hands. She took that seal in her hand and made that decree that Naboth would have to be killed because he blasphemed the king. So you can see this message on my website at thehenrywalker.org. You can study it. But again, just to repeat some of it. Number one, Ahab and Jezebel lived in Jezreel, which is a place of revelation. It wants to interfere with your revelations from the Father by giving you junk that without any basis in the Word, and have you traditionally hold on to it, like those holidays, the pagan holidays had nothing to do with Yahshua. Yahshua was born on Passover, died on Passover, and again, Christmas is worshiping the sun god, Mithras, and that's why I had the bulls on the tree. All those holidays are based on pagan customs, pagan traditions, and people do it because of tradition. You got to break it and get involved with the Father's feast days and celebrate them, like Hanukkah, feast dedications right in December, and the Jewish kids get 8 days of presents. It's a beautiful time. The feast days are on my website, and in my book Noon on my website, all those feast days are there, and the different hours of the day when the Father moves the most. And remember, from 6 p.m. to 6 p.m., the day starts. Start praying, 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. Start praying for the day sometime after 6 p.m. And number two, she's like a shark that is looking for blood. Number three, she wants to pull people away from who could help this victim. She wants to isolate that person. She probes looking for weaknesses, looking for information to use, to prophesy, quote unquote. She attaches herself to leadership. She creates soul ties to have the person depend upon her. And the spirit, number 7, uses sorcery, which is the release of witchcraft by word. She sends messages, sends a messenger and a guard. We just read what happened with Elijah. And the spirit hates when she can't get away and say no to her influence. She may even try to use crocodile tears to gain control, or even flattery. She likes to transfer discouragement, fear, strife by her messengers. Some of the effects of this spirit are fear, isolation, exhaustion, depression, thoughts of quitting, sexual impure thoughts. So just to review somewhat. Also remember that this spirit is a principality. Jezebel is a principality that can operate in many governments around the world. Also, remember, Jezebel worshiped the god Moloch, which is the god of abortion. This ministry is a pro-life ministry. I believe that life begins at conception. John said in 1 John that little children, you have known the Father. We were introduced to the Father at the moment of conception. The odds of us being conceived are 75 million to 1 against us. So the Father had his hand in that. We were created for a purpose. I gave some statistics on the last few podcasts about that. A baby's heartbeat starts anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. And after 4 months, the baby's heart is pumping 25 gallons of blood throughout its veins a day. It's not a tissue, it's a baby. It's a life. Remember, Mary went to Elizabeth's house, and Elizabeth said, Mary, as soon as you saluted me, the babe leaped for joy in my womb. Not a tissue, the babe. And David said in Psalm 139, you've known me from my mother's womb. You knew my parts before they were even fashioned. So abortion is murder, not legally, but in the eyes of the Father, it's murder. If you had an abortion out there, repent, ask the Father to forgive you, and just follow him. And if you're in a ministry and this spirit of abortion is not being exposed as murder, as death, get out of there. Because if not, that spirit of death is around the congregation and could follow you home. It needs to be exposed. And people need to be given options as opposed to abortion. Adoption. But if that's not being preached from the pulpit, get out of there. We're going to go to the Father in prayer right now. And if you don't know that you're saved, just say after me, say, Father, I believe that Yahshua died for me. I surrender my life to you. Mortify the deeds of my flesh. Make me more like Yahshua. Bring the fruit of the Spirit out of me. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Come into my heart, Father. Fill me with your Spirit. Thank you, Father, for bringing me into your family. If you said that prayer, you're ripe for a miracle. And if you need a miracle in your life right now, put your hand on a computer, on your cell phone, and just believe with me. Father, I thank you for an opportunity to pray for your people, Father. And first of all, Satan, I rebuke you from anybody listening out there right now. Go and don't return in the name of Yahshua, by the blood of Yahshua. Father, touch people where they're hurting the most, in their bodies, Father, in their minds. You mentioned to me about those migraine headaches that are so constant with people. Take them away, Father. Heart situation, heart problems, heal, Father. Get rid of cancer, get rid of diseases, Father. By your stripes, Father, they were healed. Oh, Father, move on the people right now, Father. Any depression, any fear, take it away, Father. You haven't given us the spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind, Father. Touch people out there right now. Touch them where they're hurting. Help people not to look back in the past, Father, but know you're a Yahweh of the present. You want to do something for them today. Today's the acceptable day, Father, for you to do something in their lives. Psalm 102:13. Touch them, Father. Minister to them, Father. Restore people back in their body, mind, will, emotion, spirit. Every aspect of their lives, restore back to where you want them to be, Father. Touch this ministry, expand this ministry, strengthen my wife and I. And Father, we give you all the praise and the honor in the mighty name of Yahshua, by the blood of Yahshua. If you'd like to email me, just email me at contact@henrywalker.org. Contact@henrywalker.org. We'd love to hear from you with a praise report or any questions you may have. Don't be afraid of the spirit of Jezebel. Don't tolerate the spirit of Jezebel, because greater is the Father in you, your daddy, than he that is in the world.